I'm in my early 30s. My family lives in Somerville, but I left town about 12 years ago. I only see my family once or twice a year. I'm a soldier serving in Iraq. If I remember correctly, my phone rang around 3 a.m. It was my mom. She never calls me late at night, so I answered the phone in a hurry. Her voice sounded like she was about to cry. She gave me news that I'd never want to experience in my life. My dad had died. It wasn't morning for me. As soon as morning came, I went to the commander and explained the situation. I got permission and quickly returned to the United States. It was really hard. Losing the man I'd admired since my childhood. I thought about all the memories I'd had with my dad during the plane ride. I'd grown up in a loving family. Most of my childhood memories were about my dad. We'd usually go hunting and fishing. We'd play games in our garden. All of these memories flashed before my eyes like a film strip. Losing my dad really hurt me. The plane ride seemed endless for me. About 15 hours, I finally reached the town. My dad's death had upset my mom. I couldn't hold back my tears when I saw my mom in that state. My mom was a very religious woman. We went to church first thing in the morning. I'm not religious at all. It had been years since I'd gone to church. As soon as I stepped into the church, I felt at peace. My mom was praying and crying. I saw her as I exited the church, my ex-girlfriend, Lisa. I'd never had a girlfriend other than Lisa in high school. After I joined the Army, Lisa and I had distanced ourselves. I loved her very much, but we had to break up because of my job. I talked to her for a while. I felt like I was still in love with her. It had been many years since we'd seen each other. We made an appointment to meet her the next day. It was supposed to be a friendly meeting, but when I saw her, I realized I still loved her. There was a hill 2 miles outside of the city where we'd used to meet every week during high school. I was planning to take her there. That way our memories would come alive and I could see if she loved me. I spent that day excited and thinking about Lisa. The next day we went to church with my mom again. Lisa was working at a market. I was going to pick her up after work. The hours were passing me by. Around 7 p.m. I went to the market where Lisa worked. I told her I was waiting for her outside. I'd bought her flowers before I left. She loved orchids. After waiting for about half an hour excitedly, Lisa arrived. We had dinner in the city center, chatted a little. Then I said, "Let's drive a little." She accepted. We had a great conversation in the car with music. I'd fallen in love with her again. The hill we were going to was our love hill. I'd used to meet her there all the time. I hadn't asked her if she had a boyfriend, but I'd had a feeling Lisa loved me too. She was very happy when she saw the flowers I'd bought her. We'd gone out of town. We'd gone about 1 mile. Just then I saw a car approaching from behind at high speed. I slowed down and let her pass. The car stopped right in front of us as soon as it passed us. I hit the brakes suddenly. I almost hit the car. A tall man in his 40s got out of the car. He looked angry. He was approaching us quickly. "Lisa, please don't get out of the car." "It's him," she said. I was a little confused. I said, "Who is that man?" She said, "Never mind. It's a long story. I'll tell you." The man was angrily banging on the car window. "Lisa, get out, quick," he was yelling. "You wait in the car." "We'll find out what his problem is now," I said. As I was about to get out of the car, Lisa grabbed my arm. "Please, let's go," she said. It was obvious from her tone that she was scared. I started the car and we continued on our way. I was watching what that man was doing in the mirror. He didn't do anything. He just stared at us from behind. "What's going on, Lisa? Do you want to tell me?" I said. She said this man came to the store a month ago and asked for her number. But Lisa didn't give him her number and didn't want to meet him. But the man didn't stop following Lisa. He came to the store almost every day. Lisa told the police about this, but the police didn't care much. She said that sometimes when she looked out her room window at night, she saw that man in front of her house. I told Lisa that this was perversion. I was really angry. I regret not getting out of the car and fighting with that man. We were half a mile to the hill we were going to. The road was quiet. Suddenly, I saw a car approaching behind us. I couldn't see the car clearly because it was dark. I let him pass us. But instead of passing us, he crashed into our car from behind. I almost went off the road. I barely regained control of the car. Lisa said in a tearful tone, "This is that man." He was standing a little ahead of us. I think he was checking how we were. I couldn't control my anger. I got out of the car and walked quickly towards that man's car. He had put our lives in danger. And he was a pervert who was harassing Lisa. I was going to fight him. When there was about 15 feet between me and that car, he suddenly put it in reverse and started driving towards me. I threw myself on the side of the road. I was lucky I didn't die. At that moment, Lisa came up to me in the car. "Please get in the car. Let's get out of here," she said. I quickly got in the car. My hands were shaking from the shock of the incident. That psychopath had ruined our night with Lisa. We decided to go to the police. We still hadn't gotten over the shock of the incident. Lisa said he had never gone that far. But this time he tried to kill us. We were about to approach the town. But we saw that psychopath coming fast behind us. I told Lisa to drive fast. I was also calling the police. I told the police that a man was following us and had hit our car from behind. "Please come quick. This is not a normal accident. The person who hit our car is trying to kill us," I said. I told the police officer which road we were on. The teams had set off, but that man continued to follow us. No matter how fast we went, we couldn't get away from that man. There was very little distance between us. He hit our car again. The last thing I remember was Lisa's screams. When I opened my eyes, I was in the hospital. I'd been unconscious in the hospital for 2 days. The police came to me as soon as I opened my eyes. They asked how the incident happened. I asked them how Lisa was. I was very worried about her. Luckily, what I feared had not happened. Lisa was alive, but she had many fractures in her body. I told the police what happened. I told them that that man was constantly bothering Lisa, that he had cut us off while driving on the road, and that he had rear-ended our car twice. The police said they would do everything they could to catch that man and left. I stayed in the hospital for a week. Lisa's treatment would take a long time. Although I wanted to see her very much, the doctors wouldn't allow it. I had to go back to Iraq, but I called Lisa every day for 3 months. She never answered my phone. I asked my mom how Lisa was doing. Lisa had been released from the hospital, but they'd moved out of town because of these events. She never answered my calls. She'd deleted her Instagram page. I tried everything to reach her, but so far I have had no luck. I really don't understand why she treats me like this. I'm not responsible for these events. Maybe she was trying to protect me. Since I couldn't reach Lisa, I never found out if that psychopath was caught. My dad is a truck driver. He has always been on the road for as long as I can remember. He can only come to our house 9-10 days a month. I have been interested in trucks since I was little. My dad has let me drive a truck since I was little. Of course, he's sitting next to me. I had graduated from university, but my career plans were not going well. I get bored of every job I work in a few months. I think my profession will be truck driving. I have always driven the truck for short distances until now. I had my driver's license. I needed to travel alone to gain courage. I hadn't seen my grandpa for a long time. I wanted to visit him. I told my family that if I was going to do this job, I needed to travel alone to gain courage. I was going to my grandpa's house. I never expected my family to accept it, but surprisingly, they allowed it. My grandpa's house was 60 miles away. I was going to leave in the morning. I was very excited. I washed the truck in the evening. I packed my things. I was ready to leave. I set off right away in the morning. I would spend time with my grandpa that day and go home in the evening. I was going to return. The road between my grandpa and our house was deserted, so it would be a good practice for me. My journey went very well. Since the roads were calm, I reached my grandpa's house without much difficulty. I missed him very much. We had a long chat with my grandpa. I didn't realize how time passed. It was evening. We had dinner together. Then I set off to go home. Although my grandpa told me that there was a storm expected and that I should leave tomorrow morning, I didn't listen to him. I love driving trucks, so I set off. I didn't know how wrong my decision was at the time. I had gone about 10 miles. The weather started to deteriorate slightly. The roads were calm. I was slowly heading home. My journey had been going great so far. About 20 minutes later, the storm started. The rain had increased its intensity. My visibility was almost zero. Since it would be very dangerous to travel like this, I parked my truck on a forest path. I waited for the storm to pass. Even though 2 hours had passed, the storm was not slowing down. The rain gradually increased its intensity. I had no choice but to spend the night on this forest path. I tried to call my family so that they wouldn't worry, but there was no phone signal. It must have been because of the storm. This really bothered me because they would be very worried about me. When they called my grandpa, he would be very worried too. Despite my repeated attempts, there was no phone signal. It was past midnight. The storm was not letting up. I had no choice but to sleep. If I set off in this weather, there was a high probability that I would have an accident. I locked my truck and closed the curtains. I slept until morning, hoping that the storm would stop. My sleep was interrupted by footsteps coming from outside. I tried to understand what the sound I heard without making a sound was. I thought maybe it was an animal. It was the first time I was alone in such a deserted place. That's why I couldn't sleep even though I tried to sleep. I didn't feel safe. I was scared. The footsteps continued to come from around the truck. Whoever was outside was trying to open the truck door. I didn't make a sound. I checked my phone immediately. There was still no signal. The footsteps were replaced by the sounds of laughter. I didn't know what to do out of fear. It felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest. I tried to call the police many times, but there was no signal. All the operators must have been out of service due to the storm. The terrifying laughter outside continued. I was trapped. I had nowhere to escape. I was silently waiting for the sounds outside to stop. Suddenly I heard a terrible voice. "I know you're inside." At that moment, I thought my heart would stop out of fear. I heard that voice again. "I know you're inside." And then a terrible laughing sound. I was in a nightmare. I wanted what I was experiencing to be a dream, but unfortunately, it was real. It was around 3:15 at night. The rain had stopped, but my phone still had no signal. Suddenly, the smell of smoke started to come into the truck. I was having difficulty breathing. I got scared. I opened the curtain of the truck and looked outside. I couldn't believe what I saw. My truck was on fire, and those terrible laughing sounds continued. I had only one chance. I quickly opened the door of the truck and ran towards the forest. If I had stayed in the truck, I would have burned alive. I gathered all my courage. I opened the door in an instant and ran towards the forest with all my strength. I could hear the sound of my heart. I was afraid to look back. I don't remember running this fast in my life. I could see the surroundings with the help of the moonlight. I was afraid to turn on my phone's flashlight. The people who burned my truck were still following me. I know this because, as I ran, I could clearly hear the voices coming from behind me. I ran deep into the forest for about 5 minutes. I was very tired. I didn't have the strength to continue running. I climbed onto a tree. I waited without making a sound. 2 minutes later, I saw 2 people moving in the forest. I couldn't make them out clearly because it was dark, but if I'm not mistaken, they were wearing raincoats. What could they want from me? My excited journey had turned into a nightmare. After those 2 people left the area I was in, I checked my phone. There was only 1 bar of signal. I turned the brightness of my phone screen to the lowest so they wouldn't see me and quickly called the police. I told them where I parked my truck because of the storm. I begged the police to come quickly. They burned my truck. There are 2 people after me. Please help me, I kept repeating. They said help would come as soon as possible. I had no choice but to wait. An hour had passed. I saw 9 flashlights burning in the forest. They must have been the police, but I had to be sure. The flashlights I saw from afar were getting closer to me. I was sure now, because they were all shouting in unison. "Jack, where are you?" There was no way those 2 people chasing me knew my name. So I got down from the tree and ran towards the sounds. I finally reached the police. I was saved. I told the police everything I had experienced. My truck was completely burned. The police took me home after taking my statement at the police station. I never drove a vehicle alone since that day. The police couldn't catch the men chasing me. They found many cigarette butts at the entrance to the forest. According to the police, a cigarette I threw away without extinguishing caused the fire. The fire was caused by a leak in the tank of my truck. According to the police, I did not see the fuel leaking from the truck's tank, and I threw the cigarette on it. But there is something they don't know. I've never smoked in my life. They found no trace of the suspects. The mystery of that night still remains a mystery. I can't make sense of what I experienced. The only thing I know is that I wasn't alone in that forest that night.